I did a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Omega Ruby, and this is how it went. For anyone unfamiliar with a hardcore Nuzlocke, the rules are on screen. Additionally, I used rare candies to grind out levels to the level cap. However, because of that, I missed out on EVs. By the time I decided to record, I was already at Flannery. But the main thing to keep in mind is that I use Mudkip as my starter. Why? Because it makes the game easier, and since this is my first video, I'll take all the breaks I can get. Also, the first half of this video is recorded on my older microphone, and these later halves are recorded on a better microphone. I'm sorry.
The current level cap is level 28. Flannery has 3 Pokemon, and I have Marshtomp, Lanoon, Graveler, Numel, Makuhita, and Swalot. Flannery starts with her Slugma, transitions to her Numel, and ultimately goes to Torkoal. Try to bring a Pokemon with a paralysis curing berry because her Torkoal loves to spam Body Slam, which can cripple your Pokemon's speed and has a chance of paralysis. I am starting with a Marshtomp, and if everything goes great, Marshtomp should be able to solo Flannery by himself. She starts with a Slugma, who loves to set up the sun. Marshtomp comes in with dead look in his eyes and just knocks it out with a single water gun. Going great so far. Then comes Numel, who's also easily put away with a single water gun. 2 for 2. Then comes her ace Torkoal, this beefy tortoise. Water gun is not even close. And on top of that, she sets up a sunny day. I decide to go for a dig because no way a water gun does anything at this point. But Torkoal barely lives and scarily sets up a curse. I go for a water gun despite healing, and then switch into Swalot thinking I can put it to sleep. The sun finally fades, I go for a yawn, and Torkoal just sets it back up. But Torkoal goes to sleep, I switch into Graveler, take a nasty overheat that could have maybe killed if it was a crit. But I managed to finish the Torkoal off with 3 bulldozes, and thankfully Torkoal remains asleep. We acquired the Forest Gym Badge, which lets us use Strength outside of battle, and now we can increase our level cap to level 30 to match the next gym leader's ace Pokemon. After Flannery, I head over to the desert over at Route 111 to get the root fossil in order to get Lilip from Rustboro City later, and I think that's a better choice than Anorith. And with the ability to use Strength outside of battle thanks to Flannery's gym badge, I head back to the Fiery Path to get the TM for Toxic, and also get the Firestone in hopes to use it on the Vulpix in a later encounter. I make a quick pit stop at Rustboro to revive the previously gotten root fossil into a Lilip. Then I head on back to the Petalburg City Gym in order to get started on the 5th gym against our dad. Norman's normal type gym consists of different rooms. Each room consists of different X attack specialties, such as X speed, X attack, X defense. Norman has 3 Pokemon, 2 Slackings and a Vigoroth. His main thing is he wants to use Retaliate after one of his Pokemon has fainted the turn before. Retaliate does double damage and increases from a base 70 attack to a base 140. In combination with Stab, even a resisted Pokemon can take a lot of damage if you're not careful, especially with a crit. Norman starts the battle with his level 28 Slacking, the ability Truant, which only lets it move every other turn, and the moves Retaliate, Yawn, Feint Attack, and Encore. I start with Hariyama for the type advantage and immediately go for a Fake Out so that it can't do anything before it succumbs to Truant. Then I go for a Force Palm, which does not knock it out, but it does paralyze, all but sealing the first Slacking's fate. Then comes his level 28 Vigoroth with Vital Spirit as his ability with the moves Encore, Feint Attack, Retaliate, and Fury Swipes. I expected a Retaliate, but instead it goes for an Encore and goes down to a single Force Palm. Why he went with Encore instead of Retaliate, that's between him and Lord Arceus. The main difference between this Slacking and the other one is that this one knows Swagger. Norman finally locks in and goes for a Retaliate for a huge amount of damage, and Force Palm does a little over half. I make a mistake here and switch into Graveler, forgetting that Slacking has Truant and I could have just knocked it out with a second Force Palm, but that's what overthinking gets you. Graveler is able to hit through the Swagger with a Bulldoze, but is just a little off from finishing the job. Norman decides to heal up, and I decide to gamble and stay in and continue with Bulldoze. Norman's feint attack does more damage than I thought, and all of a sudden I find myself in a pinch after Graveler gets hit in confusion again. Had the feint attack crit, I would be browsing for coffins to put Graveler in. I decide not to gamble any further and switch into Makuhita on a Truant turn to fake out and finally finish the job with Force Palm. And boy, did it not need to be that dicey. Had I just remembered the Truant turn, this would have been done before it even got this worse. Or if I paid attention to the moveset, I could have at least given Graveler a confusion curing berry. Either way, the 5th gym badge is ours, and with that the ability to use Surf outside of battle. Outside, Wally's dad gives us the HM for Surf, which is a great special 90 base power move that we can teach to your water types. Wally then takes us with him to Mauville City so that we can head over to 118. But this hurts more than helps because I need to backtrack back all the way to Little Root Town to get the amulet coin. While I do use the rare candies to level up my Pokemon sometimes to avoid the grind, amulet coins are still useful because it gives me money to buy vitamins that are rather expensive. I make my way back to 118 again and surf across to reach Route 119, where I talk to a fisherman who gives me a good rod. This opens up a few encounters for us, but nothing too substantial. Then begins this weird fork in the story that is not present in the originals. The segment where Steven drops from the ledge and tells us not to use the same type of Pokemon too much even though he's a steel type user is there, but what happens after is not. If you're playing Omega Ruby, Latias shows up and says that she needs help for one of her friends. In which Steven goes, sounds good, and instead of offering to ride one of his Pokemon because he's the champion and he has a Pokemon that he can fly on, Skarmory, he's like, no, let us both hop on Latias, whether she can carry us or not, and let's go. So our character, calmly grabbing for his dear life, heads out with Latias and Steven to go to Southern Island to help Latios. After landing in the Southern Island, you have to move to the north end of the island to ultimately go towards where Latios is located. Upon seeing Latios, Steven's first thing to say is, hey, you're almost as good as a steel type, you know? Turns out, Team Magma has been harassing this poor Latios in order to get the Mega Evolution Stone so that they can help out Maxie with his efforts. We then jump right into a battle with Steven as our partner into a rather easy battle against Courtney and a Magma Grunt. Steven has a Metang and I start with a Marshtomp, and they have a Coughing and a Camerupt. I go for a Surf to hit everyone on the field, and I'm expecting this battle to end in one turn. However, Camerupt survives by just a little bit and has to go another turn. After a curse from Camerupt, Marshtomp goes for a Surf while Metang goes for a Zen Headbutt, and with that, we have defeated the Team Magma Grunt and Courtney. I can't believe they brought a Coughing and a Camerupt in order to take care of a Latios. What were they thinking? Latios decides to join our team and rot in my PC box forever, and also has a Latiosite to go with it. Steven gives us the Mega Bracelet and talks about how Mega Evolution can only be achieved if you have an exceptional bond with your Pokemon. Latios brings us back to Route 118 and tells us that his insurance won't cover the back injury, and we can finally start looking for our encounter for Route 118, which I still have yet to do. My Route 118 encounter is what I was hoping for, which is the electric type Electrike. It's always great to have a type that only has one weakness, ground. Then I head back to Petalburg City because I forgot to catch myself a Marill in the water. I was lucky enough to get huge power on it, and because of its fairy typing, is a candidate for an Elite Four team at the end. What you're about to see next can be summed up as overconfidence and stubbornness, and it spells disaster for me. I then transition to Route 105, where I'm looking to encounter a Wingull or a Pelipper. Instead, I run into a wild Tentacool, which I had already encountered in Dewford and was a duplicate encounter. I try to run, and because it's based on your speed stat, and I guess Electrike is not very fast, the game doesn't let me run. On top of that, Tentacool hits me with a Wrap, and I forget that it prevents you from running, so I keep trying to run. Tentacool then goes for a nasty Bubble Beam that knocks out my Electrike. My first death since I started recording for the video. Honestly, I was pretty dumbfounded. I don't know why I decided to be so stubborn, I don't know why I didn't decide to switch, I don't know what got through me, and ultimately it spelled poor Electrike's demise. I'm eventually able to catch a Pelipper, but it feels like a consolation. Then in Route 115 north of Rustboro, Dexnav is able to help me get a tail out that knows Brave Bird and has the Guts ability. Oh, and it also happened to be a Jolly Nature, which is incredible. However, my overconfident decisions don't leave me alone there. I get in a fight with a random trainer who sets up a belly drum Hariyama on me and unfortunately takes out Breloom with a single vital throw. This one hurts, maybe more than Electrike. My overconfidence just cost me an important member of my team. I don't know if Breloom would have made it to the Elite Four, but I know it would have made it pretty far. Linoon comes in to take revenge for his fallen friend, but now it's too little, too late. I head back to Route 118 to proceed to 119, where after a battle, Numel evolves to Camerupt. Over at the Weather Institute in Route 119, Team Magma seems to be here trying to look for a Pokemon that can apparently control the weather. Upstairs, we see Tabitha reluctantly listening to Maxie about stealing research, but he does not hesitate to smack the crap out of the scientist for grabbing his hand, it seems. Before the confrontation with Tabitha, Taila evolves into Swellow, however we will not be using Swellow for what's next. We confront Tabitha and start a battle, and what's frustrating about this battle is that Tabitha only has one Pokemon, a Camerupt. When we encountered him before at Mount Chimney, which I don't have a footage of, he had a coughing, and this time he doesn't even have that. Even his other grunts in the same institute have either a Golbat or a Mightyena. I don't know why he only has Camerupt. Regardless, my water-type Pelipper is able to put it away by just looking at it wrong. I decide not to take the cast form the guy offers because I have a different encounter in Route 119 that comes to mind. See, by fishing under this exact spot in Route 119, you can guarantee the rarest Pokemon in all of Pokemon history. Not that one. Okay, there it is. If you fish under that bridge in Route 119, there's a high chance to get a Feebas. I have never used a Feebas before in the older generations because the accessibility was kinda difficult, but in this one they made it a little easier. You still have to max out his beauty stats, but doing so with the in-game berries is just a lot easier now. I pick up a Leaf Stone from the south end of Route 119 that I can use on my Nuzleaf. However, I'm gonna wait till he's level 36 and learns Extrasensory before I evolve it into a Shiftry. As we get ready to head towards Fortree City, May wants to battle us to see how we've been doing.
May has 3 Pokemons on her team, Slugma, Wailmer, and Grovyle. And she believes the best thing to do in this permanent reign is to start with Slugma. I start with a Pelipper, and I'm hoping I don't need to switch out at all because the rain is able to really boost Pelipper's attacks. A Surf makes quick work of Slugma and out comes Grovyle, her Grass type. Grass type not being super effective against Pelipper, and with the rain, I decide to give it a shot and stay in. I use a Protect to see what it wants to do and it goes for a Slam, and that gives me confidence. After a weak pursuit, I decide to hit Grovyle with a rain boosted Surf that does more than half. It goes for a Slam for a little damage, and I knock it out with a Surf. Then comes Wailmer, who is a little bulky. I go for a Protect to see what it wants to do, and it decides to shroud itself in mist instead. I go for a tiny bit of damage with Payback before it hits me back with a Water Pulse. Not wanting to risk a crit and also confusion, I decide to be safe and switch onto Nuzleaf, even though I would have liked to sweep the whole team by my Pelipper itself. A critical hit Water Pulse does little damage and does not confuse, and I'm able to finish the battle with a Leaf Blade. After the battle, May gives us the HM for Fly, which we can't quite use yet, but once we get the next gym badge, it'll be really useful to take us to different areas without having to cycle all over the place. While in Fortree City, we find out that the path to the gym is blocked by an invisible obstacle. We eavesdrop on Steven, who suggests that the Pokemon responsible for it can be found on Route 120. Our Route 120 encounter turns out to be Tropius. While not good for a playthrough, he is very good for teaching HMs. On Route 120, Steven provides us with the Devon Scope, which lets us see the Kecleon that is blocking our path. Thanks to the battle, Meryl is able to evolve into a Zoomeril. Thanks to the Devon Scope, we're now able to make our way to the Fortree City Gym. Fortree City Gym Leader is Winona, who specializes in flying types. She has 4 Pokemon, Swellow, Pelipper, Skarmory, and Altaria. While not as difficult as in the original, you still have to be careful not to get careless and carried away while battling her. She starts with her level 33 Swellow with Quick Attack, Aerial Ace, Double Team, and Endeavor.
This Swellow has guts, so don't even think about giving it a status condition. Swellow goes for a double team and I immediately miss a smackdown. I decide to play it a little safe, so I decide to set up Stealth Rock so that it'll be useful to me throughout the battle. Thankfully, Graveler is able to hit it with a smackdown through double teams and is able to knock it out in one hit. Out comes her Pelipper, who I know is just itching to hit me with a Water Pulse. I don't think enough and I switch into Pelipper wanting to resist the Water Pulse, but not realizing that my own Pelipper can't damage it either. Water Pulse causes a confusion, and I immediately realize that I should equip the Confusion Carrying Berry on all of my Pokemon. I decide to switch into Marshtomp while it protects and go for a Rock Slide. Water Pulse does very little damage, while Rock Slide is barely unable to knock it out. I'm always surprised by Pelipper's bulk. After a Hyper Potion heal, Marshtomp should be able to knock out a Pelipper with a back-to-back Rock Slide as long as I don't succumb to Water Pulse and Confusion. Down goes Pelipper, and Winona sends out her ace Altaria. This Altaria is not as scary as she is in Ruby and Sapphire because she does not have Dragon Dance and instead has Cotton Guard. I switch into Azumarill in case it goes for Dragon Breath, but instead she goes for Cotton Guard, which brings up its defense stat by 3 stages. That causes the pace of the game to slow down significantly, so I decide to set up an Aqua Ring so I can mitigate some damage, as I'm gonna be here a while. I go for Rollout hoping to do more damage each turn, and on the other end Altaria continues to go with Earthquake that does little damage, especially thanks to the Aqua Ring recovery. Unfortunately, Winona catches onto my schemes and goes for a Roost, which quickly puts an end to my plans. And if things weren't slow enough, Rollout misses, ultimately resetting my damage. Afterwards, we just decide to trade back and forth between play roughs and rollouts, and boy does it go on for a while. Eventually, I get lucky and get a crit, which immediately knocks out the Altaria. I'm pretty sure I was in a bad spot were it not for that crit. Skarmory comes out last, and the Stealth Rock helps break the Sturdy. We go into Camerupt, take a little bit of damage from Steel Wing, and after a Sand Attack, thankfully we were able to land a Lava Plume and win the battle. After the battle, Marshtomp evolves into Swampert. We get the TM for Roost, and the ability to fly outside of battle. I make my way down south to Route 121, where I'm almost met with another lesson in humility. As I was making my way down to Lillicope City, I decided to battle all the trainers along the way to get some XP and most importantly some money. That's when I ran into teammates Tate and Joy with their Slacking and Spinda. Overall, not too scary, but what is scary is that Slacking hits hard, and Spinda decides to double down. I almost lose my Swellow. No matter how many times, I always underestimate how hard Slacking is gonna hit. I encounter a Kecleon for my Route 121 encounter, and a Pikachu in the Safari Zone. I make a quick stop at Lillicope City to heal up my Pokemon, then head to Mount Pyre, where Team Magma is headed next. There are a few useful items here at Mount Pyre, the first being a Lax Incense, which helps increase the evasiveness of your Pokemon, and the second being a Sea Incense, which acts like a Mystic Water in which it increases your Pokemon's Water-type damage. Then, at the topmost floor, you can grab a Shadow Ball TM from the grave of this Pokemon, and a Medichampite at the corner, which could be useful depending on your encounter. My Mount Pyre encounter turns out to be a Shuppet, which makes me really sad since I was hoping for a Vulpix. After all, that's what I got that Firestone and Fiery Path for. At the summit, we catch up to Team Magma, and also get ourselves a Banetite. We catch up to Maxie and Courtney, and Maxie talks about how the Red Orb is all he needs in order to awaken what he needs to do. He says he has to go to Slateport City to catch a submarine, and in the meantime orders Courtney to take care of us. This battle with Courtney, just like the previous one with Tabitha, is real frustrating because all she has is one Camerupt. At this phase, in a region that has many rock and ground types and a few other fire types which fit the theme of what Team Magma is trying to achieve, I just don't get why they give her only one Pokemon. The battle ends as soon as Swampert lands on the field, and Courtney is shocked. I mean, how could one Pokemon who is quad weak to water not defeat a Pokemon trainer with 6 badges? Courtney leaves, and the old couple talk about how the Red Orb and the Blue Orb should never be separated, and hence they will entrust us with the Blue Orb.
After all of that, I travel down to Route 123 south of Mount Pyre to get a Gyarados, even though I don't Mega Evolve my Pokemon this entire run, and also most importantly pick up an Eviolite from a Graveler while I wait to evolve it into a Golem. My encounter for Route 123 is a Goldeen that I got by fishing. I head on over to Slateport to check out the submarine Team Magma we're after, to find out that Captain Stern is real proud about launching it. He's in for a rude awakening as Team Magma decides that they're about to steal the submarine right under his nose. We head inside to find Tabitha and Maxie stealing the submarine, and they order 2 of their grunts to stall for time as Maxie makes his escape. We head back to Lily City in chase of Team Magma, and we run into May. And in the middle of this, all she can talk about is how great the Lily City department store looks. Thanks, May. She tells us not to worry as she's been raising and catching tons of different Pokemon. When we press X to doubt, she challenges us to a battle with 4 Pokemon on her team. Tons of different Pokemon, alright. She starts with her Swellow, and I start with my Camerupt. I go for a Rock Slide while she goes for little damage with Aerial Ace. Rock Slide takes care of Swellow, and out comes her Wailord. I swap out to Shiftry. Water Spout does little damage, while I go for a Leaf Blade to knock it out. Magcargo comes next, and I swap for Pelipper. While Magcargo does have Rock Slide, it won't be fast enough to get one off, and a Surf knocks out the Magcargo. Finally, out comes her Ace Sceptile. Now Sceptile is funny in this generation, because in this battle, Sceptile does not know any Grass-type moves. I go for a Protect, while it meets me with a Detect, and it's a null turn. I go for a Fly, but it uses Detect and it renders my Fly useless. I go for another Protect, Slam misses, and I go for a Roost to recover almost to full health. I go for another Fly that barely misses out on the KO, however on the next turn I finish the battle with Surf. She mentions she's raising her Pokemon well, but she didn't even teach her Grass-type Pokemon a Grass-type move. Afterwards, my Graveler evolves into Golem via trade and learns Explosion after evolving. It evolves, and it just wants to die. In pursuit of Team Magma, we find their hideout in Lily City, and proceed to explore this maze. There's a lot of items and a few TMs scattered all throughout, but most importantly, a Master Ball, which lets you catch any Pokemon without fail. On the way to finding Maxie and his admins, I run into this Grunt. And this Grunt proves a little more problematic than I would like. He sends out a Mightyena, which is not all that dangerous, but apparently this Mightyena knows Swagger, which all of them do, and my Camerupt is in a lot more danger than he realizes. While Mightyena goes down to a lava plume, Golbat comes out and traps me in with a mean look. Mightyena then decides to haunt me from the afterlife and hit me in confusion. Golbat goes for a Swift, and I hit myself again in confusion. And next thing you know, Camerupt is down to just 16 HP. At this point, I'm ready to lose the only fire type I have. Golbat goes for a Swift, and Camerupt survives by 4 HP. Camerupt then hits through the confusion with a Rock Slide, knocking out Golbat, and surviving. What a will to live. I then get in a 5v1 battle against a bunch of Poochyenas, and they all just kinda pass out to a Surf. Good job. In the short time Team Magma has had the submarine for, they decide that the best use of their time is to make it look like a Camerupt. Anyway, Courtney's waiting for us, and she wants to battle again. And to nobody's surprise, she once again only has one Camerupt. I send out my Pelipper, who sneezes, which causes her Camerupt to go down. My Camerupt would never. She says Maxie's headed towards the seafloor cavern, but she's not gonna tell us why. Too bad, we already have the game cover. For now, we press forward and make a stop before Mossdeep City at Shoal Cave looking for our new encounter. Our new encounter is unfortunately an Adamant Celio. Not the best, but could be worse. We get to Mossdeep City, immediately run into this man house to talk about his rod. With the help of the new Super Rod, we catch a Wailmer for our Mossdeep City encounter. Thanks to Wailmer in Mossdeep City, we're able to use the Lily City encounter to catch us a Staryu, who evolves into one of the strongest Pokemon in the game, Starmie. Then, we run back to the Team Magma hideout so that we can catch an Electrode. This is all to help us set up an encounter at the new Malville. You'll see. We head back to Mossdeep City and get working on the Psychic type gym. The gym leader Tate and Liza are based on their Ruby and Sapphire counterparts and not their Emerald counterparts. Meaning, they both only have one Pokemon for a total of 2 Pokemons that you're going to go against in a double battle. Tate and Liza's 2 Pokemons are Lunatone and Solrock, the Psychic Rock types of the Hoenn region. I send out Pelipper and Azumarill, hoping to do quick work of these 2. Pelipper is also additionally holding a Sea Incense to boost her water type attacks. Pelipper goes for a Surf, and Azumarill goes for an Aqua Tail on Solrock. Solrock catches me off guard by outspeeding and almost knocking out my Pelipper if it were a critical hit. Surf is unable to get the double KO, and Lunatone sets up a light screen. Azumarill thankfully lands the Aqua Tail on Solrock, and Solrock goes down. Lunatone is healed by a Hyper Potion, Pelipper goes for a Protect, and Azumarill knocks out Lunatone with one Aqua Tail. And with that, we skirt a death on Taydenlyza and earn ourselves the 7th gym badge. After the battle, we get the TM for Combine and are now able to use Dive outside of battle. As we step outside the gym, there's an earthquake, and we notice a beam of light shoot up from Route 124, as other NPCs remark on it as well. Steven approaches us and brings us into his home and explains that the explosion of light confirms that the seafloor cavern on Route 128 has been breached. He gives us the HM for Dive and scuba gear so we can investigate Route 128. Afterwards, I take some time to finish over some leftover items, the first of which is to evolve this Feebas. If you have picked up all the berries along your journey, you should have plenty of berries to create blue Pokeblocks. Then, once its beautiful stat is maxed out, you just have to give it one rare candy or level it up, and it will evolve into a beautiful Melodic. I use Dive to reach a blue shard on Route 124, and pick up a Pinsirite while I'm already there. My Route 124 encounter is a Volt Absorb Chinchou underwater, and I exchanged the blue shard for Waterstone in order to evolve my Staryu into Starmie. Also thanks to Dive, we're able to fully explore Sea Malville on Route 107, where we get a bunch of nuggets and the TM for Ice Beam. Also on Route 107, I find out the item finder does not work underwater and pick up a yellow shard in order to trade for Thunderstone. Thanks to the Thunderstone, my Pikachu evolves into Raichu. For my Route 126 encounter, I catch a Clamperl. Then on Route 130, I get a Relicanth. Then finally on Route 128, I get a Corsola. After wrapping all of that up, I finally decide to head back to Route 128 so I can visit the Seafloor Cavern. Here at the Seafloor Cavern, my encounter is a Golbat. Oh, and on the way to Maxie, I get a TM for Earthquake. After reaching the innermost chamber, we encounter Maxie and Archie talking to each other. Maxie talks about how it's too late and he has reached Groudon, calling him his partner for a new Hoenn. He talks about using Groudon's primal reversion in order to achieve his dreams. Then he challenges us to a battle, and this time he has a Mega Evolution Stone in his glasses. Maxie starts with Mightyena, and I start with a Starmie. Despite being weak to Mightyena, I know Starmie can outspeed and kill it with one Dazzling Gleam, so that's what I go for. Then comes Weezing, and in Gen 6, Starmie only learned Psychic by TM, which can't be gotten until Victory Road, so I decided to go with Surf. Thankfully, Sludge Bomb doesn't poison, and Starmie puts away Weezing with another Surf. Then comes Crobat, while I decide to switch to Raichu. Raichu goes for a Discharge, which is just short of a KO, and Crobat crits with a Poison Fang. Then a second Discharge knocks out Crobat. Finally comes his ace Camerupt, who is holding a Mega Evolution Stone. Camerupt Mega Evolves as I decide to switch into Melodic, but only goes for a Yawn. Then gets knocked out by a single Surf from Melodic. And just like that, the leader of Team Magma is pretty easily defeated. Despite the loss, Maxie mentions he will use the Red Orb to awaken Groudon's primal reversion. Tabitha however shows up to warn Maxie, but instead is accused to be after Maxie's position. At the end, Groudon awakens, brings out the sun, and head towards Sootopolis City. Maxie is shocked to find out that the sun is indeed hot and his calculations were not correct. Maxie is devastated to see what he has done, and alongside Archie tells us to meet at Sootopolis City. Steven comes flying in, observes what's going on, and tells us to meet him at Sootopolis City too. At Sootopolis City, we head into the Cave of Origin. On the way, we meet Steven and Wallace. Wallace is the gym leader of this city. At the gates, both Team Magma and Team Aqua are waiting. Maxie hands us the Magma Suit, along with the blue orb we picked up from Mount Pyre, supposedly supposed to help us deal with Groudon. May also shows up out of nowhere, and calls us her best friend. Okay. Inside the Cave of Origin, our encounter is a Mawile. A little later, we suit up, attach the blue orb, and summon Groudon. Groudon lets us jump on his back for some reason, Then comes the big confrontation. Groudon undergoes primal reversion, which makes water type moves useless, and we have to battle it. At first I thought I could just run, but that doesn't work. So next time I'll just throw the Master Ball. Even in normal story mode, there's no punishment in using the Master Ball because there's no roaming legendaries in this game. After Groudon is calmed, the world is saved, but we don't even have our 8th badge yet, so they trusted somebody who could potentially never make it to the Pokemon League. Everyone comes out to celebrate, and Steven rewards us with the Eon Flute. Eon Flute lets us ride our Latios to fly anywhere in Hoenn, and hence you're not tied down to a Pokemon that has to learn Fly. Our first encounter in the sky is a Murkrow. We head back to Little Root Town so that Professor Birch can upgrade our Pokédex to National Dex. And also, we can now find hidden encounters across the region, but it can only be done through DexNav. Next, we head to Mauville City, where Watson has a request. He invites us to his apartment, and we can finally go to the upper floors of Mauville. He takes a picture and tells us we should be having access to New Mauville, and to make sure everything is running fine. I go to New Mauville, find an Anthracite, and encounter a Magnemite. This is exactly why we took the Electrode at the Lily Cove hideout. The only encounters here are a Voltorb and a Magnemite, and due to Dupe Claws, I'm guaranteed a Magnemite. New Mauville also acts as a magnetic field, so you can evolve your Magnemite all the way to Magnezone here. After finishing up, we head back to Watson, who thanks us for our efforts and gives us the TM for Thunderbolt. Then I head back to New Mauville, so that Magnemite evolves all the way to Magnezone. From there, we journey back to Sootopolis to take on the 8th and final gym. While taking on the gym trainers, our Celio evolves into Walrein. And then it's time to face Wallace, the only thing between us and Pokemon League. Wallace has 5 Pokemon on his team. He starts with his Love Disc, and I start with my Magnezone. Love Disc goes for a Water Pulse, and gets an immediate confusion. Thankfully, Magnezone has a Person Berry, and cures it immediately, and is able to fire back with a Thunderbolt for the KO. Then comes Whiscash, and I go into Shiftry. Whiscash goes for a surprising Mud Sport, so I stall a turn with Fake Out. Then the next turn, I'm able to knock it out with a single Leaf Blade. This brings out Melodic, who knows Ice Beam. I overthink just a pinch here, and switch into Hariyama, thinking I can Fake Out to stall more turns of Mud Sport. But I switch into Magnezone without even faking out first. Magnezone dodges a Hydro Pump and goes for Thunderbolt. A second Hydro Pump comes in and it is scarily close. Additionally, Thunderbolt fails to knock out, so now I have to switch out to Swalot, otherwise Hydro Pump can knock out. After Melodic is healed, Swalot is able to tank a Hydro Pump and set out Toxic, all but guaranteeing this Melodic's demise. I get some damage off with Swalot, however it's too risky, and I switch out to Starmie, who is just here to stall around as Melodic succumbs to the Toxic, ultimately finishing it off with a Dazzling Gleam. I feel like that could have been played a little better had I just gone straight to Swalot instead of Hariyama first. Out comes his Celio, and Hariyama is able to make quick work of it by going for a Fake Out, and then a Wake Up Slap in the next turn. Out comes his final Pokemon Seeking, who goes for a Rain Dance to boost its speed. However, Hariyama stays in and finishes the job with a couple Wake Up Slaps. And with that, we have defeated the final gym leader, Wallace. For defeating Wallace, we get the HM for Waterfall, and the ability to use it outside of battle. With Wallace defeated, we can finally make our climb to the final segment of the game, the Pokemon League. But before that, we need to go through the Victory Road. At Victory Road, my encounter is Lyron, who is unfortunately modest nature. I save my Meteor Falls encounter for when I have Waterfall, so that I have a chance at catching the elusive Bagon. However, I'm not quite sure if its evolved form Salamence will be the best fit for the Elite Four. Then I go back to resume my trek up Victory Road. I'm able to find the TM for Psychic, however I don't think I end up using it since it's not the most useful against the Elite Four. I also find the TM for X-Scissor, which I think I will teach to Shiftry for coverage. At the end of Victory Road, we come face to face with our other rival, Wally. Wally thanks us for motivating him to grow stronger and wants to face us in battle to show us his strength. Wally also now has a Megastone of his own. Wally's new team consists of Altaria, Delcatty, Roselia, Magneton, and his ace Gallade, who always Mega Evolves. The battle begins, and Wally leads with Altaria. I send out Starmie. Starmie fires off a 4 times effective Ice Beam, and Altaria goes down before it can do anything. Wally loses his mind and sends out Roselia, We outspeed and take it out with another Ice Beam and a clean sweep yet again. Wally sends in Magneton, and honestly I wish it was a Magnezone, since everything needed to evolve it into a Magnezone is present right here in Hoenn. Oh well, I switch into Swampert. I go for an Earthquake. Magneton survives thanks to his sturdy ability, then additionally its Tri-Attack burns, cutting Swampert's attack in half. Surprisingly, Wally doesn't heal Magneton, and Swampert knocks it out on the next turn. Then comes Delcatty. I stay in and go for Earthquake again just to see how much damage it will do. However, Delcatty doubles down and charms Swampert, further lowering the attack. At this point, I switch into Swellow. One strong return takes Delcatty out. Finally, it's time for his ace, Gallade. Gallade Mega evolves right away, but it doesn't matter. My Swellow hits a nuclear Break Bird, and Mega Gallade goes down in one shot. With Wally defeated and the victory road conquered, we only have one challenge ahead of us, the Pokémon League. My Elite Four team is built around raw damage with enough bulk to take a few hits. Everyone is capped at level 55 to match the Elite Four Ace, and the team is Hariyama, Shiftry, Magnezone, Starmie, Camerupt, and Swampert. First up is Sydney, the Dark-type specialist. His team is Mightyena, Shiftry, Cacturne, Sharpedo, and Absol. Sydney loves moves like Fake Out, Swagger, and in general loves being a nuisance. The trumpets of the Elite Four commence, and Sydney leads with his Mightyena. I lead with Hariyama, who has been with us since Granite Cave in Dewford Town. I start with a Fake Out for some chip damage, and then the next turn, Hariyama surprisingly outspeeds and knocks out Mightyena with a Brick Break. I was hoping it would go for a Swagger since I had a Person Berry to cure the confusion and get a free attack boost, but that's okay. Next is Shiftry, who carries his own Fake Out and also Extra Sensory. I'm confident Hariyama can take a single critical hit Extra Sensory, so I decide to stay. Extra Sensory does end up critting, and Hariyama survives just as predicted. Hariyama goes for a Brick Break, and Shiftry is taken out. Out comes Sydney's ace, Absol. Since it knows Psycho Cut, I switch into Magnezone, who walls most of Absol's moves. But Night Slash crits, and in Gen 6, Steel no longer resists Dark. Magnezone takes heavy damage but holds on. Then it fires back with a Flash Cannon, boosted by its Metal Coat, and Absol goes down. Then comes Sharpedo, and the critical hit from the Night Slash earlier has made the situation quite dicey. Sharpedo outspeeds almost my entire team and can 2-hit most of them. I gamble that Magnezone can survive one crunch, bare it doesn't crit. My heart is pounding, Sharpedo hits with a crunch, Magnezone barely hangs on and is able to survive with a Thunderbolt. That was way too close for just the first Elite Four member. Sydney's final Pokemon is a Cacturne. I swap out to Shiftry, and after a Fake Out and a Spiky Shield, Shiftry is able to land the X-Scissor for 4 times the damage. And with that, Sydney is defeated. Next up is Phoebe, the Ghost-type specialist of the Hoenn League. Just like her teammate Sydney, she loves to drag battles out with tricky moves, and honestly she can be a real menace with her PP reducing moves and abilities. Her team is made up of Dusclops, Bannet, Sableye, another Bannet, and her ace, Dusknoir. The battle begins with Phoebe sending out her Dusclops, and I lead with my Shiftry. I open with a Dark Pulse. It doesn't knock Dusclops out, but it does get a lucky flinch. Phoebe uses the chance to heal her Dusclops, but I go for another Dark Pulse. One more Dark Pulse after that, and Dusclops goes down. Phoebe doesn't waste time, and she sends out her ace, Dusknoir, right away. This thing is dangerous since it threatens Shiftry with both Ice Punch and Fire Punch. I decide to swap to Swampert, and it takes a Fire Punch, luckily with no burn. I use Protect to scout, and sure enough it goes for Ice Punch, which also luckily doesn't freeze. Swampert answers with Earthquake, doing more than half. Dusknoir hits again with an Ice Punch, once again not freezing, and a second Earthquake finishes the job. Next up is Sableye. I protect first and it reveals Foul Play. I go for Waterfall, but it once again barely survives. and Sableye fights back with a strong foul play. Phoebe heals it back up. I land another waterfall, dropping it back into the red. Another waterfall is able to finish it off. Phoebe then sends out her Bandit, the male one. It uses Grudge as I swap into Magnezone. Magnezone fires off a Thunderbolt, but Bandit hangs on and counters with a weak Shadow Ball. I predict a heal and go for a Thunder Wave, but instead it goes for just another Grudge. One more Thunderbolt is able to finish it off. Her last Pokemon is her female Bandit. I keep Magnezone in and use Flash Cannon. Once again, Bandit survives with a sliver of HP, but in the very next turn, I finish it off. And just like that, Phoebe is defeated. If only her Pokemon didn't keep surviving by just a pinch of HP, I feel like that battle could have gone just a little better. The third member of the Elite Four is Glacia, the Ice-type specialist. Her strategy is simple. She loves to set up Hail. As a matter of fact, 4 of her 5 Pokemon carry it, which makes Blizzard hit every single time. But even with that trick, she's not as scary as the others we have faced, or the others we will face. Glacia's team is Glalie, another Glalie, Frostlass, another Frostlass, and her ace, Walrein. Glacia starts off with a Glalie, and I lead with Hariyama. Because of Glalie's inner focus, I can't use Fake Out, so that plan is off the table. Glalie sets up Hail right away, but Hariyama answers with a Brick Break and knocks it out in one hit. Next comes one of her Frostlass. I decide to switch into Magnezone since Hariyama can't hit it with anything. Magnezone tanks a Blizzard, then takes an Ominous Wind. Magnezone hits back with a Flash Cannon for the knockout. Glacia then sends out her ace, Walrein. I decide to keep Magnezone in. Walrein lands a strong Surf, but Magnezone fires off a Thunderbolt that takes it down instantly. Glacia then brings out her second Frostlass, and I take this chance to use Camerupt for the first time in the Elite Four. Camerupt eats a Shadow Ball, and even though its special defense drops, I'm not worried. Frostlass sets up Hail, but Camerupt blasts it away with a Flamethrower. Her last Pokemon is another Glalie. It stalls with Protect, but is only delaying the inevitable. On the next turn, Camerupt finishes it off with Flamethrower. And just like that, Glacia is defeated. The third member of the Elite Four is down. The final member of the Elite Four is Drake, the Dragon-type master. His team is stacked with heavy hitters, Altaria, a male Flygon, a female Flygon, a Kingdra, and his ace Salamence. He is exactly the reason why we picked up the TM for Ice Beam back at Sea Malville. Drake starts off with Altaria, and I lead with Starmie, a Pokemon built to go against this team. One Ice Beam later, and Altaria goes down to a 4-time super effective move. Drake immediately sends out Salamence, his ace, because it threatens with a super effective Thunder Fang. But Starmie outspeeds, and another Ice Beam takes care of Salamence. Next comes Flygon, and the script doesn't change. It's Ice Beam again, and it's another knockout. His second Flygon comes in, and you can imagine what happens next. Ice Beam again, and it's out. Finally, Drake sends out his Kingdra. For once, I don't have to click Ice Beam, and I go for Dazzling Gleam instead. Kingdra survives, only to respond with a Yawn, which honestly feels like a waste. On the very next turn, another Dazzling Gleam finishes it off. And just like that, Starmie has taken down all 5 of Drake's dragons. And this is why encounter manipulation for Starmie on Lilycove City is so worth it. I head towards the champion, and even though my commentary may not show it, I always get so nervous at the final battle of a hardcore Nuzlocke. I'm always worried my instincts will fail me. We walk into the champion's room, and Steven is awaiting. He is the only member of the Pokemon League that has all 6 Pokemon: Skarmory, Claydol, Aggron, Credilli, Armaldo, and his ace, Metagross. As the battle begins, Steven flashes the Megastone on his Blazer. Steven starts with Skarmory, and I lead with Magnezone. Skarmory sets up spikes, while the Thunderbolt brings it down to Sturdy. Steven heals, and I go for another Thunderbolt. It survives again thanks to Sturdy, so I need a third Thunderbolt to finally take it out. Steven then brings in Aggron, who threatens with Earthquake. I switch into Hariyama. Hariyama tanks the Earthquake and goes for Fake Out to break Sturdy. Next turn, a 4x super effective Brick Break knocks out Aggron. Then comes Claydol. I swap to Starmie. Claydol sets up a Reflect, but Surf one-shots it. Next is Armaldo with X-Scissor. I go back to Hariyama, and it takes the hit. Hariyama outspeeds, break the Reflect with Brick Break, and finishes Armaldo the next turn with Rock Slide. Now comes Credilli. I bring Magnezone back in, and it only takes a weak Giga Drain. Flash Cannon hits hard, but doesn't knock it out. Credilli lands a Confuse Ray, then heals on the next turn. I fail to fight through the confusion that turn. On the following turn, I finally land a Flash Cannon as Credilli fires another Giga Drain. A final Flash Cannon finishes the Credilli. And now, Steven's ace, Metagross. It Mega Evolves, and I decide to keep in Magnezone. Magnezone can tank any of its move, and it has got a Citrus Berry for recovery. Metagross goes for a Giga Impact, which triggers my berry. I take the chance to paralyze it with Thunder Wave so I can outspeed it. Thanks to the paralysis, I'm able to go for a back-to-back Thunderbolt, which unfortunately still wasn't enough to knock out the Metagross. But then, shockingly, Metagross lands a critical Giga Impact. Magnezone goes down, so close to the end. It had been such an important member of the Elite Four run, and seeing it fail before the final moment feels rough. I send out Camerupt, who is able to outspeed thanks to Magnezone's Thunder Wave, and is able to put it away with a Flamethrower. And just like that, I've done it. I beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Omega Ruby in my very first video. What a messy journey this has been. I only started recording at the 4th gym, my mic quality is all over the place, and my commentary feels like a budget version of famous Nuzlockers. Regardless, I'm very proud of what I'm able to achieve. I know hardcore Nuzlocks are everywhere in the community nowadays, but to me it's still special to be able to beat one of these. For anyone who hasn't tried a hardcore Nuzlocke, or a challenge run of any sort, I strongly suggest you give it a try. You remember every mistake you made, and you personally feel responsible for all your Pokemon. You try your best to see what you could have done differently, and you try to minimize sacrifices. I'm really hoping this is the beginning of many hardcore Nuzlocke videos to come. This was really fun to make, but I'm not gonna lie, it was really exhausting learning how to make videos. From audio, to video, to actually playing, all of it was fun, but there were times it felt like a chore. So let's see where it goes. I learned a lot in this playthrough. Always respect random trainer battles, don't overuse emulator speedups, remember that rare candies miss out on EVs, and most importantly, just assume all moves are gonna do double damage because there's a high chance of critting. This has been an amazing ride, and I'm glad you are here for it. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next run.